Good. So there's a little bit of parallax due to the slight different position of the two cameras. But now at least you can... Well, it doesn't look like you can see through it, but that's because the nozzle in there is at the same temperature as everything else. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to warm up the nozzle just a little bit, okay? There we go, nice warm nozzle now. And what you'll see is it goes down, you can't see anything until he gets where you want him to be. So that is what all of that was about. Right, so we're going to do a spot of glass blowing today. Sorry if the focus is a little soft here. You are currently wearing these, so if the camera were properly white balanced, everything would look kind of like that. But you've actually got them on, it's been white corrected, so everything doesn't look pink. And the reason that you need those specs on is because once glass, borosilicates, what we're going to be working with today, gets up to about 300 degrees, it starts putting off sodium ions which ionize, and they give off a very strong orange colour, and that will be utterly blinding. In fact, it might be bad even with the camera as it stands. So you need those glasses, and I'll need those later. Where's mine? I'll be using these boys, I like these. So, what's the task? I've got to take something like that and make it into something like that. This is one I made earlier. It's not the prettiest piece of glass blowing by a long way, but it's pretty precise, right? This is actually an optical window here. Drops of sodium come out of there, and this basically allows you to get a microscope really close to those drops such that you can see it reacting with water vapor coming in here, and then the sodium drops drop out the bottom. This is all under vacuum, of course, and then later on you can just take the waste sodium off the bottom, and that's where you attach the vacuum. Now in principle, what I want to do is I want to make something like this, but with a window where I can actually see in the infrared. Borosilicate glass like this is black to the infrared, so you need an optical window, and I'm going to be using a calcium fluoride optical window. Now in principle I could put one on here, but I want something where the water gas is coming in from the side, and I know what this looks like at the moment. I want to do exactly the same thing with the infrared. So sadly, I've got two choices. I can trash this piece of kit and make the infrared one out of this, or I can just make another one for infrared, one for microscopy. I'm going to make one for microscopy. So, some basic stuff. First of all, you need some oxygen. So this is my oxygen generator wheezing away in the background, and there's oxygen now coming out of there. What an oxygen generator does is it's like some clay. You can press air onto it, and then you let the pressure off, and the oxygen selectively deabsorbs or selectively stays on. I forget which one it is. The nice thing about the oxygen generators is you don't have to worry about having a high pressure oxygen. If you've got a high pressure oxygen cylinder and a high pressure hydrogen cylinder, say for instance, you can get a fairly decent explosion out of those if it's not set up properly. With an oxygen generator, I've only ever got a fraction of a bar of oxygen here. There's a limit to what can actually go wrong. Now, at some point, the first thing I'm probably going to do is just put a tail on there. I'm just going to join those two together like that. Now, to do this, if I'm just heating up a little bit of glass here, it's no real problem. I'll be able to hold this. Glass is a pretty good insulator. You know, I can melt this here and probably hold it about here somewhere. With the bigger the piece of glass, the more awkward that gets. You can't really hold things above 70 degrees Celsius. Your fingers just get burned. So we're going to have to basically get a handle on both sides. Another thing is, at the moment this has some grease on it. You can see the grease on the join. That's bad news. If this gets really hot, the grease will basically fuse the two pieces of glass together. So I could get all the grease off here. And another thing you have to be very careful of is when the glass gets hot, if these joints are dry, when they're put together, they fit together better when they're hot, and then when it cools, it puts huge forces on here and it just cracks the glass. So it's really important that there's a spacer in there, which I'll deal with shortly. So the first thing I'm going to do is clean all the grease off of my joint here, or at least 99 point something % of the grease. I'm just rubbing it on my t-shirt here, and so now he's cleaned up all the grease. That's nice. I'm probably going to use this as a handle. Now, if I'm going to use this as a handle, it's pants as a handle if I can't hold it very well. So I probably need to stick a tube on there. It doesn't need to be pretty, almost anything will do. I'm going to it's fine. Yeah, it really doesn't need to be pretty, this. It's right, so I'm going to cut a piece of glass. About there is probably about right. It needs to be long enough for me to hold it. Yeah, so about there, I reckon. But I can always cut it down a bit. So you put a scratch on the glass, lick the glass, break it away from you. Boom. Now I'm going to turn this into a handle. So I'm going to melt that down, join that on, and I could do a bit of blowing from one side, which means I'll either need a cork. Have a cork for this one? I think I do. That's rather lucky. Perfect. Cork is great because it might burn a little bit, it doesn't matter. Charcoal you can always burn off later. So, right, let's do it. Let's get to it. So, I'll get me a flame on. This is all, takes a while for the oxygen generator for its purity to come up. Oxygen generators, by the way, that's a bit much. You can get them on eBay for a few $100. Expensive, but the thing is that when you get into oxygen cylinders, it's very easy to just forget about them, leave them on, and you can basically, it's a pain in the ass to get a refill on an oxygen cylinder. Okay, right. So you get a little bit of carbon deposition when you start. Now what I'm going to do is, it doesn't really matter where I do it. I'm just going to melt a bit here. Doesn't matter what these are. I'm going to stick that on there. So I'm going to pull it out here. This will be fine. It's easier. Shut. So there's something filling up with. Okay, that's fine. I want to keep this small if I can. Okay, it's blown out. Perfect. Ideally, you don't want to get these little bits of glass, thin glass everywhere. But what do I do with my piece of glass that I want to join on there? Come down somewhere. Ah, there he is. Super. Right. Just going to join the two together, hold them all up, push them together for a few seconds. There we go, it's good. Stick the bung in, melt it all up. Done. My cork isn't sealing very well. There we go. Let's try that. Okay, bit of blowing, bit of pulling, and this is only a handle, bear in mind. I don't really care about this really at all. Okay, it's about now he's solidifying. That's good. Take that out. So now I can use that as a handle for this, but you'll recall that I want to make sure that I don't want these two things to stick together here. I need that to cool down for a few seconds. And whilst that's cooling down, I should have some either asbestos, which is basically just glass, or graphite tape. Either would be fine in this instance. And I think I've got some glass fibre here. Perfect. So this is just a piece of glass fibre. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick that in the join, and what that does is it's going to graphite would be better actually. There's some graphite. I'll show you the general idea first. There you go. So you basically just stick something in the join like that, and it stops it from seizing up too much. Let's see if I can find some graphite. So it's got to be jammed in there hard enough that it doesn't fall out, but not jammed in there so hard that it never comes unstuck. Where the hell is my graphite tape? One layer of tissue should do it. Layer of tissue, super. So, what I'm going for now is a piece of tissue, stick it in there. That's perfect. Good. And this is almost now getting down to the point where I can touch it. It's still hot. This is one of the things you learn very quickly with glass blowing is things that look normal can often be at several hundred degrees. Right, so I'm going to be able to blow hard enough on this to blow out here, but not so hard that it just blows the whole flask off. Good. So we're almost to the point where we can do the next join, which is going to be this one. And so what we're going to do, we're going to cut this off about here somewhere. Join that on there. And what else are we going to do? We need to be able to stop this thing up and such that we can blow. Oh, good. It turns out there's a lot of improvisation with glass. Well, there's a lot of improvisation when I do glass blowing. Sorry about this. Oh, there we are. Let's use a glass knife. So, glass knife. Let's put decent scratch on that. There we go. Well done. What we're going to need is a nice hot piece of glass. That'll be fine. I just use thermal shock to do the cracking. Boom. Boom. Okay, done. Alright. So I'm going to warm this up a little. You it can be pretty bold with, you know, properly relaxed glass. If the glass has all sorts of stresses in, you got to be very gentle when you're heating it up. But at the moment, it's not so bad. Alright, this is probably the first tricky bit that we come into. Number one. Let's just even this play out. There's not a good cut on this one. Whatever. Yeah, the sort of glassware I'm making, it's going to see one or two experiments. I'm not making this stuff for, if I was making it for the long game, I'd put a lot more effort into this. There we go, starting to dimple out. He's not straight either. Seriously? This is royally fucked up. Oh. That's more like it. There we go, much better. Perfect. You can always straighten it up a bit afterwards. It's easier doing this, I should stress, when there isn't a camera right next to you. You just get a little more space and you're more relaxed. You don't have to rake everything and whatnot. You gotta be a bit careful that this doesn't fill up with gas, otherwise it'll go bang and scare the living crap. You know, like the little explosion earlier? You get those, just much bigger. Alright, so there goes. If I had a bigger flame, I'd do this all in one, but I don't, so I'm stuck with whatever we got. Okay, I think that's more or less sealed. Yep, feels like a seal. So now I'm just going to melt it up in little portions. Like that a little. Anyways, it'd be easier if I was doing this on the other end, but whatever. Ooh, it's getting hot in the fingers. It's almost functional. Well, it is functional at the moment. It's just, oh, it's hot. Oh. A little puff, a little pull, and if you pull glass, it straightens out. I'm going to screw that up. Okay. Just got to pull, make sure it's straight. Okay, that's not bad. Okay. I can do better. It's a fraction of a degree off. Okay, that's pretty decent. Yeah, it's good enough for me. Like I said, this doesn't have to be perfect. Alright, so this is going to be incineratingly hot. Make you squawk if you touch it at the moment. So, I'm going to put that somewhere to cool. Right, over there. And whilst that's cooling, we're going to do a little work on the next piece. We need one side arm that we can This is just glue, by the way. This is just epoxy here. So we're going to need a sidearm who's actually going to be fairly chunky. Yeah, chunky, like about that sort of style, chunky. And the reason it needs to be chunky, you'll see later. I'm gonna flatten all this out. You melt it all down, you push it onto a piece of graphite, and it flattens it all out, and then you can glue stuff onto it. But for this, I really will need my real cutter. I need a sharp cutter for this. That's perfect. Now I could probably just break this like I did previously, just by pulling it, but in this case I'm going to go for the heat cracking trick again. Perfect. Done. Right. Now we've got to narrow this guy down a bit. Make a nice join. Oh, it's going to be tricky joining these. One of the downsides of the oxygen generator, I'm on full oxygen power at the moment. That's a lie, now I'm on full oxygen power. And if you've got a cylinder, you can get as many atmospheres out of it as you want. I can't, because oxygen generators will only give you up to about somewhat over a bar of pressure. Which is enough for doing stuff like this. This is relatively small for glass working. Mate. Good. That is what I'm going to join on to this boy. We're still nice and hot still. And we need a big one first. I think probably make. Okay, the piece of glass that I need is currently attached to something else. So I've got to cut him off. Something's burning on the inside of this glass. I don't care. Oil, I think. Alright, that. Cut that rest. Hopefully I don't get too many files on the desk here. We'll see how it goes. Good. This is the tricky bit. Learn that small. Good. He's in good shape. looks like I got bung for him as well. Super. So we are looking in better and better shape. So let's warm this boy up again. And in the first instance. Right, so it gets progressively more and more committed as you get further and further on here. That if you screw up later on, it gets harder to pull it back. You screw up early on, it's like, whatever. You screw up later on, you basically throw everything away. Also gone for it there. Perfect. So I mean, you gotta be careful you don't fill up the glassware with an explosive mixture of gas. That's generally bad. Bad news bears. Seal, good. Toasty. Toasty, toasty, toasty. I'll just sort that out. Okay, I'm happy with that. It's good enough for me. It's not quite straight, not in the right place, but like I was saying, I can tolerate some imperfections in this. The only ones that really have to be in the right place are the window. And even that's got some flexibility in all of it. Right, so now we've got two. That's straight. That's straight enough. These are relatively easy to straighten anyway. Especially at this point, just warm them up a little, pull them a little. I could, if I was keen, I could move it up, a few millimeters. But I'm not that keen. So, I'm going to make sure I get this basically the right way around. So I want the next one, vacuum comes out towards me. The glass is getting really hot now, by the way. I wouldn't be able to touch it here. You can even see that it's starting to burn the paper on the inside. Let's check that we're still recording. We are still recording. Super. See how we're doing. Like I was saying, you get less chance to screw things up as you go along. Should have gone for it. and it's quite blurred out enough of that. Good enough. Good. Alright. This needs to be widened a little. I will need a piece of graphite. Oh. Hello. Again, not perfect, not pretty, but probably good enough to be functional. It's perfect for functional. Okay, that was a bit of a gamble because I don't have a bung on here, so I can't blow at the moment. And it is super hot. I've got to keep it hot because until it's all even out, it will crack incredibly easily. Oh, too hot to hold. Too hot to hold. No, the right bung. This is a nightmare. And it's not a seal either. Well, that's bad news. Right, let's see if I can find a suitable stopper. The answer is no. Oh, the importance of being prepared. That looks helpful. That's very close. Gotcha. Good. So we're blocked up now. I can, in principle, blow. Good. Be a bit careful when you go back in the plane, because it'll likely crack. Yeah, this glass that's put together like this is super susceptible to cracking. But I think that was it cracking. Maybe not, we'll see. Alright. Let's see what we can do about evening some of this out. It's getting really, really difficult to hold this at the moment. So hot. Okay, this looks good. I'm going to transfer my grip, but getting difficult to find somewhere that's, oh shit, it's going inside. Maybe it wasn't. Ow. Good point. I might have to take a break. Just let it cool down a bit. Another thing I could do is, let's see what I'm doing. I can't tell if there's a hole in the kit. If there's a hole in the kit, it's bad. Oh, there's a hole in the kit. Okay, I see it now. That's bad news, because that means you fill the kit up with gas. Right, so I might be better off under these circumstances blowing through this one, because I can see what I'm doing better that way. Good. So now I can blow through this one instead, which means I can see what I'm doing better. It's all about being able to see what you're doing while you're blowing. That's where the hole is. Opening. Right. So this is far, far, far from optimal. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill it up with a little piece of glass. In fact, I think I can do it with this. Yes. Might be just about perfect. See the hole. There it is. Oops. This is a really ugly way of doing glass, but once I get a seal, it'll all even out fairly nicely. Get a seal. That might be okay. Seal, good, we're done. Okay. That's nice. You don't run the risk of blowing up the kit once you get a seal. So now it's all heated up, even it out. A little gentle blowing, all evens out. That's almost good enough for me. Like I was saying. Yeah, so times like this you gotta be really careful. You just don't end up screaming, grabbing the wrong piece of glassware, screaming and dropping the whole damn thing. Because basically at the moment the whole thing is way, way, way too hot to hold. And we're approaching, he's been happy with us. is just need a little straightening, and I'll be good to go. Yeah, I'm happy with that. And 90 degrees. That's pretty close. Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay, I'll buy that. Yep, I'm happy with that. Right, so now what I'm going to do is what I did with the other one. I've got to cut that off, melt the plate on, melt it down so it's a bit flat, and then I can glue something on there. And then the last bit, which is the super ballsy bit, is I've got to flatten down this round bottom flask. It's actually trickier than it sounds. And then I've got to blow a hole in it, even all that out, which is super tricky. And then at some later point I can glue on the infrared window to it. So it's been a while since I did one of these flattening guys, so I'm going to do a bit of practice. Right, so there you go, graphite plate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to melt it down, push it onto the graphite plate, and if I've done it, if I get it done, if I do it right, I'll end up with something that is good for, actually, right, I'm going to do a bit of annealing on the glass. What tends to happen is the glass gets really hot in one place, it cools down quicker in one place than another, it gets kind of stressed. And that means that when you heat it up the next time, it's got a propensity of cracking, and I don't want that. So I'm just going to heat the glass up. You can't see it at the moment, but there's a healthy orange glow coming off all of the glassware at the moment, which is about the temperature you need for annealing. I can see it. I see some opaqueness in the glass. That basically means that there's a load of stress there, and now it's gone. So after that, you can just let it cool down a little, and now when I heat it up the next time, there's much less chance of it actually cracking. Good. Now the reason I didn't do the flat flangey thing first is because if I had, I've only had a short little bit to join it to the other thing, and the whole piece of glass would have gotten so hot that I wouldn't have been able to hold this, which means that I wouldn't have been able to straighten it out or hold it or do anything, or I'd need to have put a handle on it or something, and it would have got very complicated. So I need my glass cutter, sharp one, which is this one, and there. Right. So when I come to do this, I'm only going to get one chance at it, okay? Which is why I'm doing a little bit of practice. It's been a while since I've done this, and I want to make sure no cock-ups. And it looks like I will need a bigger flame. So let's see if this will do it for us. Ooh, that does sound aggressive. That's more like it. Good. So I want it to get it all even and peachy. Not sure what this actually looks like. Okay, that's about right. And then you push them onto the. Oh, it's easy. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you get all nice and even peachy, and then you just push onto the graphite. Okay, I'm happy I can do that. Good. Yeah, it's not bad. And then afterwards, yeah, you just get the whatever, the little springy bit that connects you to the high vacuum, and you just use some high vacuum epoxy to glue the two together. Right, so doesn't even have to be particularly close, doesn't it? This glass is still incineratingly hot. You know, you touch this almost anywhere and it'll be instant burn, instant screech, instant dropping the glass. Yeah, this glassware is incineratingly hot. So, right, let's see what we can do. I need something like that. Feeling just uncomfortable holding it where I'm holding it. Good. Perfect. Right. I'm also going to have to be doing some blowing here because I don't want to fill. Yeah, it's the same problem as before. You don't want to fill the glassware up with gas if you can avoid it. Yeah, this is the tricky bit. You know, you just can't hold the glass. I might have to wait for it to cool down. I just can't hold it, it's too hot. Or I'll tell you what I can do, which will speed things up a bit. I need some tissue paper, some water, and you just put some wet tissue paper where you want to hold it. And hope that does the trick. Good. It does. I have to. Okay, I'm almost there. I'm going to do one more, and then we're going to go for it. There we go. It's not straight, but I think it's good enough. It'll be bolder. Alright, so that's what we've got to glue it onto. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take the bit where I screwed it up, this bit. I'm just going to open them up a bit, just a little bit. Okay. Then I'm going to have one more shot at this. Oops. And again, it's not straight. It's ugly in the way it's not straight, but it will provide a satisfactory join for the metal. So that, I'm going to call him good. I could see the stress in the glass here, so I'm just de-stressing the glass a bit. Now comes the almost impossible bit. Right, this I've just never done before. So I've blown a hole in a flask and trying to get it flat enough that you can put an optical window on it. What size it need to go on? And it needs to go on my side. Now I'm going to have to block that one up somehow. I've got no idea how to do that. I have to chop a bung down and rely on it. It doesn't have to be a great seal, just has to be good enough to allow me to blow out a hole in the kit. And if we're lucky, it will mostly be a seal. It's good enough. It's good enough. Which now means we're going to blow out a hole on this side. This is where it gets super tricky. Super tricky. So in principle, flattening it out should be fairly easy. It should sort of spontaneously do that all by itself. Kind of where we're at now. More heat. That's good. Now I've got to blow all that out. Oh, this is difficult. Do this. A lot of glass. Never done anything like this before. Well, I guess you just gotta give it a go and hope for the best. Let's try. And I think that might be perfect. More by luck than judgment. Like I said, I've never done it before. Carefully don't burn yourself, Phil. Nice piece of glass to chip all the stuff off with would be nice. I think that's perfect. Go to flat, and that would be awesome. And I'm burning my fingers here, I can tell. Actually, that my only question is, did I make it too big? Please, please, please don't be too big. almost perfect. Oh, I touched the glass. I got so lucky then. That's perfect. That is absolutely perfect. I think I'm not going to be any bolder than that at all. I don't know whether this will survive, but in the meantime, what we are going to do is do a spot of annealing on the glass. And for those, I'll ditch my glasses and go for regular ones. Oops. Oops, oops, oops. It's quite normal, everything ends up getting a little bit singed. A little bit toasty. Good. And with that, I think we are basically done. Super. Yeah, don't worry about it. A soot is just a nice way of it. The soot condenses everywhere at the same time. You've done a decent job cooling it down. Super. So, there you go. There's a little bit more jiggery pokery to do with it, but it's essentially done. So let's see how he compares to my previous version, which way around did they go? That way around. There you go. Matching pieces of kit. One with a hole, in which I'm going to glue an infrared window. Yeah, not bad. I'm happy with that. Okay, well, at that, I'm going to let everything cool down, and all I've got to do. Right, so to finish up this, we are going to have to. These are like these are high vacuum fittings that. But I need a way of attaching this in a flexible manner to the rest of the high vacuum system, which is basically one of these. So to stick that to there, I could probably get away with just regular epoxy. But in this case, I'm actually going to use something called Torsil, which is a ludicrously expensive epoxy. Well, this is about $100, this thing. And Torsil, right, with epoxies, you have two components. And you mix the two components together, and only when they mix together do they start chemically reacting to make these long polymers, and those long polymers are what's the goopy stuff. And so they reckon that Torsil takes 24 hours to set. I'll be done in 5 minutes. So the important stuff, you need clean surfaces. This surface needs to be clean. Yeah. Actually, normally with epoxies, you want the surface to be rough, but I might want to reuse this again. And if I want to reuse this again and I scuff up all the surface, yeah, this is a sealing surface. I want this to be clean for later. So even though when I glue that on there, the bond won't be as strong as if this was all roughed up, or whatever. At some later point, I can take this off, either burn the epoxy off or similar, and then I can reuse this. So we will need to mix up some epoxy. Now, most epoxies come in equal sized tubes, so you mix one part of one and one part of the other. Torsil, for reasons I never really understood, is you would need to put like 2 or 3 times as much of one in as the other. And by the way, getting the ratio of these two right makes a huge difference to the strength of the bond. But for me, to a large degree, if it holds for 1 or 2 experiments, I'm happy. Okay, so this is component 1 of my Torsil. I don't need that much of it, but and we need component 2. precisely, I suppose. But like I was saying, it's kind of a one-off. Now, it's really super important with epoxies that you mix these well. That's probably the most important thing of it all with an epoxy. Now, like I was saying, I'm a lazy man. This takes about 24 hours to go from this to where it's set like a rock. And that's just way too long for my time scales. So like I was saying, I'm going to be done in 5 minutes maybe. And we're going to be doing that with our friend fire. So I'm just going to warm this up a little bit toasty, and yeah, so there's just a chemical reaction that goes on between these two, and the hotter it gets, the faster that reaction is going to be. So obviously you don't want to burn the stuff if you can, but if you heat it up to 50, 60 degree, oh yeah, there we go. Okay, that's plenty good enough. This you really don't get long once it gets like this to when it sets like a rock. So let's bring it back up top. Okay. One nice even ring of epoxy would be good. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. And then, should I cleanest side is this one. And nice and gentle. Perfect. Okay. Now, we need to get that nice and warm. So I've got an internal sort of barometer for how viscous it's going to be from this. Right, so you see I made a bit too much, but whatever. And so the easiest way to make sure that it's nice and toasty but not too toasty is just a little gentle encouragement on here, and that, and not even close to how hot we need to be. We need to be up to the sort of temperature where it's sort of uncomfortable to touch. It's much more like it. We're up to about 70 degrees now. And that's the point. It's super quickly because it's so warm. Actually, this is what we've got. The truth is, the heat from this now is going to be chemical reaction in the epoxy. And this stuff will go from being mobile to set like a rock in very quickly. I'm just going to bring that so you can see yeah, so it's nice and shiny. Look at the moment. It's not that hit. It's actually. There we go. Yeah, they said it's looking aesthetic for that. And it sounds like it's on vacuum. Okay, guys. Okay, we'll really this stuff now. Yeah, and like I was saying, the chemical reaction. Yeah, this is kind of viscous, but because this had the acceleration, yeah, I mean it's basically set now. Yeah, it's another minute or so and it's done. And then we have the more interesting bit of how do I actually get the calcium fluoride window stuck in the hole in the back. So what I think I'll do is I'll get a hot glue gun and I'll put hot glue all the way around the outside, and then I'll drop the window on top of it and just warm the whole of this up. Hot glue melts at about 150, it's just polyethylene hot glue. And the only doubt that I have, I could just use the epoxy here as well, but I think that might trash the window, and I would ideally, the window it turns out is worth about €100, so if I can put it in a method that means that I can get it out again, then that would be nice. And yeah, epoxy, once it's set like a rock. With hot glue, you can always get it off fairly easily. My only doubt is that when I heat this up and it all drops in and sticks together nicely, when it cools down, I've got fears that there'll be a differential expansion and there'll be some slight sort of little gap in the glue, and it won't hold as good of a vacuum. So we're now zoomed in. The guy in the background there is all glued up. That's the epoxy done. Now we've got the task of gluing in our calcium fluoride window to there. I'm really not sure what's the best way of doing this. So I think what I'm going to start with is let's clean this up as much as we can to start with. Should be very clean anyway, it's been heated up to lots of degrees Celsius. Right, now my reckoning is best shot is to have glue all the way around the outside, like that. Probably enough. Good. Now, the goal here isn't to actually. Oh, I might get a seal on the first guy, if I'm lucky. Good. Now, of course, once it gets up to 150, it'll all melt nice and even. Another nice thing about polyethylene is if you have to burn it off, it burns to nothing. So the goal here is just to melt all of the glue and let surface tension do the rest. So make sure all the glue is nice and molten. Certainly molten at the top, molten on this side. I am happy with that. So about this time, you might actually be able to get a sensible idea of how this is all going to fit together. That's going to go in there, and it'll need a syringe filter on, which would have a nozzle on. Oh, this one's even got a nozzle on. Excellent. So the expectation is, okay, I'm going to have to look down a little bit. I'm going to angle the camera up And that, my friends, is that. He's done. So now you have a nice little optical window. So you're going to have to look down a bit, but the bottom line is you can see what you need to see. I cannot believe that the stalks are different lengths. That's just so dumb. Yeah? Yeah, well, live and learn. Good. So there's a little bit of parallax due to the slight different position of the two cameras. But now at least you can... Well, it doesn't look like you can see through it, but that's because the nozzle in there is at the same temperature as everything else. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to warm up the nozzle just a little bit, okay? There we go, nice warm nozzle now. And what you'll see is it goes down, you can't see anything until he gets where you want him to be. So that is what all of that was about.